All right, we're at a couple minutes after the top of the hour, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Oracle Guide and Learning webinar for Oracle Guide and Learning for PeopleSoft webinar. We have people here with us from Asia, North America, and who knows where else people are from. So glad to have you all with us tonight or this morning, wherever you're at. I am going to introduce really quickly Susan Carinante, who will be moderating the Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can enter them into the Q&A window in the GoToWebinar window, and we'll be looking for those questions and answering as we go. So Susan, go ahead and jump in if there are questions, and I can answer them real time.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, well, let's get started. I'm happy to be with you today. Obviously, we're here to talk about Oracle Guide Learning. It's my favorite topic to talk about. So this is me. My name is Cameron McClurg. I'm a vice president with SpearMC Consulting. I've been doing PeopleSoft work for my entire career, and most of those years of my career were not in consulting. They were actually as an employee doing support and training of PeopleSoft. So I supported several different organizations, rolling out new features and doing support and training, and eventually leading a group who managed the help desk and all sorts of things like that in terms of supporting people, our users at organizations. And I have a unique sort of perspective now in the consulting world, especially with this tool, because I would have loved to have had this tool when I was running support desk for all those years. Excuse me. To have an ability to support our users to respond to support help desk tickets with a guided learning digital adoption platform, which we're going to talk about today. So that's been a bit of my journey doing PeopleSoft my entire career, and I'm happy to be with you. SpearMC is all about PeopleSoft. That's our core of what we do, whether it's different kinds of consulting services within the different pillars of PeopleSoft. So finance and supply chain, HCM, campus solutions, the type of work we do, whether it's ongoing managed services, staff augmentation, or projects. We do cloud services, so moving you to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and other cloud infrastructures, doing hosting and supporting of all that. The thing that we really got involved with quite a bit and have a reputation for is really around our learning services. So SpearMC has been about training and learning from the very roots of when our organization started about 20 years ago. Excuse me. We were all about learning, all about training our customers on how to use PeopleSoft, getting the most out of PeopleSoft. And we really created a legacy there of training, and we still offer great training classes, as well as something called the All Access Learning Pass, which is a consolidation of all of our learning and our training classes that we've done throughout the years. Because we have such a reputation and such credentials in the training area, learning services area, as well as an embrace of emerging technology, Oracle approached us and asked us if we could take this new product called Oracle Guided Learning and take it out to the PeopleSoft market. So that happened a couple of years ago, and we said, yes, absolutely. We will be that group that will take this product and take it out to the PeopleSoft community. We know how to present this, and it's evolved a little bit over the years, but I'm happy to have led that process and now get to talk to you about what that looks like in terms of taking Oracle Guided Learning out to the PeopleSoft market. We have credentials with respect to our recognitions from Gartner, our certification as a SOC 2 certified partner, as well as expertise in the Oracle arena. So we've done this for a very long time, and we've very proud to have recognition from Oracle and other organizations for our abilities. Okay, so let's talk about why you're here. Let's talk about where you may be thinking about in terms of legacy training. And when you talk about something like Oracle Guided Learning, you're thinking already about training and a learning tool. But we're going to talk about why traditional legacy training is not what people really are doing now as we move forward in a more modern way of interacting with software. This is the traditional model. It's writing training guides, producing those in whatever format, printing them out, getting them to people. This may even be a digital form where we've got the training guides on a website, on the intranet site, on a place where people can go access and get help or get training if they want to learn how to do something like approvals or query. The problem with that, of course, is that it's not in PeopleSoft. It's offline. It's outside of the PeopleSoft space. And so traditionally what happens is people will take that training. Maybe they are forced to take that training. And over time, they might lose the memory of how to do those things in PeopleSoft. Maybe they were required to do the training, but now they're maybe a year later, 2 years later, and they're in the PeopleSoft. Maybe they're a casual user and they're trying to figure out how to do something and they can't remember how. They don't even remember where the training guide is. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they're probably not going to reference that training materials. That's what we call look-away training. They're looking at PeopleSoft. They want to try to complete that transaction. They want to kind of do what they're being asked to do in PeopleSoft. Maybe they have to come in for open enrollment. Maybe they have to go in and approve a transaction, and they don't remember how to do it, and they're going to just try to figure it out. This is the model for legacy training. And so if you think about this model doesn't really exist in a lot of newer ways we interact with software. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about something called digital adoption platforms. Let's take a look at another example completely outside of PeopleSoft. If you have an iPhone, you're familiar with the screenshots here that I'm showing. So here on the left side, I have a weather application, and on the right, I have my mail application. These are just apps on my iPhone. When have you ever taken training on how to use your iPhone? It's a bit of a silly question. But you can see here that after an iOS upgrade on the left side of my phone, there was a little pop-up message saying, hey, tap here for more detail in a day after the current day. In other words, something's changed with the software. We have more detail in the software, more detail in this application. And if you didn't have this pop-up message, you probably wouldn't have known that you can now click on a future day and get hourly weather over those future days. Over on the right side, you see this idea of a mail application, and there's this message that says if you hold down the send button, you can actually send this message later. Now, both of these things, if you think about them, it's Apple's way of communicating a change in the software, a way to use the software without actually asking a user to take training prior to using these applications. So think about Amazon website. Think about your smart TV. Think about other websites that you might go to. None of these things have traditional training anymore. So why do we look at PeopleSoft that way? Why do we look at PeopleSoft and say, well, no, we have to have all this training before you actually use the software? And generally speaking, we don't have to do that anymore because we have the concept of digital adoption platforms. So a digital adoption platform is essentially no code that sits outside of the application. The whole point of this digital adoption platform is to help the users with walkthroughs, task lists, smart tips, maybe messaging that can help them understand what they're supposed to do in PeopleSoft without actually asking them to go through an actual training experience. So that's what a digital adoption platform is. So Oracle has now produced an application called Oracle Guided Learning, which is going to now do that for you in PeopleSoft and other applications. So this digital adoption platform, which I'm going to show you here in a second, it's real time. It's embedded in your real live PeopleSoft production application. Now, of course, you could hook it up to a non-production application, but that undercuts the whole value of this tool, which is going to be embedded real time in your application. So it actually helps people do really complex transactions live, or maybe it's sort of looking real time at what somebody's doing and suggesting something to them, saying, hey, I see you entered something that you shouldn't have entered. Are you sure you want to enter it that way? Can I guide you through a different way of doing that? Now, this is going to lead to a faster time of productivity, not just for your core people, your core users of PeopleSoft, the individuals who have to go in on a daily basis to think of, benefits administrators or people onboarding new employees, or AP clerks, people who have to come in and use the application. Maybe it's a new employee into one of those departments, and they need to understand how to use the application. So those people are going to learn how to use the application faster. But it really shines when we talk about your casual users, your individuals who come in very infrequently, the individuals who have forgotten where the training materials are, the individuals who, quite frankly, don't care to learn or memorize how to do things in PeopleSoft. They just come in, they say, I know I'm in here, I know I'm supposed to do something, I'm supposed to approve this transaction, I know I need to enter time, I know I need to fill out my open enrollment for benefits for next year, but I don't care to memorize how to do this thing. Think about a life event. If you have a child and you don't probably know what you're supposed to do in PeopleSoft when you have a child. Why? Because it happens so infrequently. So who memorizes how to do that? So an individual that has guidance to do that thing is going to get their thing done, be productive, and be able to move on. And quite frankly, they don't even care to memorize how to do that thing. Orca Guide Learning has a third element that really is a game changer, and that's the analytics, the ability for a support group or a training group to actually look at what's happening in PeopleSoft. What are people doing in PeopleSoft? Are they actually running these guides? If somebody calls into the help desk and says, hey, can you walk me through how to do this thing? The person that is taking that phone call can actually look up with the analytics and actually see if that person's actually run that guide. If there is a guided process for that, they can actually say, you know what, there is a guided process. Let's walk through that together. And what this has shown is that individuals who have that guided help in PeopleSoft will take it, they'll use it, and they will not call your help desk. In fact, we're seeing across the board in all of these organizations who are using Orca Guide Learning that their call volume to their help desk is dramatically decreasing. In some cases, Kaiser Permanente, who's one of the first customers who've done this and are now in year 3 of their implementation of OGL, they actually report that they've eliminated all of the how-to questions that have come into their help desk. They no longer take any calls to their help desk about how to do something. The how-to questions have been completely eliminated. Other organizations are looking at support tickets that are coming in saying we have a bunch of people who are having trouble with this thing. North Dakota noticed that a lot of people are taking about 3 or 4 calls a week. Everybody was closing out of this message that was popping up on a specific screen at PeopleSoft. They were closing out of it, and it was creating problems downstream, and that was leading to about 4 different calls a week into their help desk. They simply created a message, popped it up there to tell people what they were doing and preventing them from doing something bad. It actually eliminated all those help desk calls. So this is the goal of Orca Guided Learning. And with that, I'm going to now switch over and do a live demo of how this all works in PeopleSoft. So if you have any questions so far, feel free to jump out there into the Q&A window and write your questions. And I'm going to switch over, and Susan can let me know if there's any questions so far. All right, I am going to be logging in to a financials environment. This is PeopleSoft Financials. It is 860, and it is PUM 47. So it's a little bit, it's maybe a few months old. But what you can see here is that I've got a regular PeopleSoft application. You'll notice that in addition to the standard tiles and elements that are normally part of your notification window, I've got search window, etc. In addition to that, I have a couple of things that are popping up here that are a little bit different. One thing right here, this is called a smart tip. A smart tip is a little sort of circle with a question mark that we can put anywhere on any screen that's helping people understand what's going on with this field. It can help them understand what's something about that field. Maybe we want to tell them something about it. Maybe we want to help them understand a policy about that field. Maybe we want to, in this case, give them an ability to actually learn more about search by clicking into this and actually taking a guided process to learn more about search. So I'll do that here in a second. Let me just click on home just really quickly here. We're having an issue here with our pop-up there. Okay. In addition to that, we also have the ability, so that's a smart tip, and we can actually put these smart tips anywhere, and we don't have to have the little button with the question mark. So for example, if I just hover over something like this, I'm hovering over the expenses tile here, I can pop up a message when people just hover over something. So in this case, I'm hovering over expenses. I'm telling somebody that you can do these things with the expense tile. You can create a fluid expense report. You can look at it, transaction activity or change in expense type. So this is another way of doing a smart tip that's sort of giving messaging around these different things. So those are smart tips that are kind of telling me something about these different places. So in addition to these smart tips where I put anywhere on different screens, I also still have this widget, which is my full library of all my guides. So you don't have to just, put your guides sort of embedded in different places, but you can also just have a library of all your guides. So let's say I wanted to look up a guide on query. There's all my guides based on queries, build a query, run a query, etc. And each one of these things will actually launch me into a process. So this process will then take me through actually learning how to do something, completing a transaction, that sort of thing. So here, I'm going to go ahead and run this guide right here. It's called Build a Query. And what you're going to see is that I'm going to launch into it. It's going to now take me into a messaging that's going to walk me through how to build a query. So at any point, it tells me a little messaging. It tells me, the audience for the employees and click next to begin. So I'm going to go ahead and click on next. You'll notice that it now takes my attention up to this little nav bar. So by the way, this is a great way to handle change management when you move to Fluid with your application from Classic, where people don't actually know where the nav bar is. Where's my menu? So this is a great way to sort of bring people's attention and say, hey, right up here, click on this. You'll notice that as I click on this thing, like here, it actually is going to take me right to the next step, which is to select the menu. So you see this messaging right here telling me to go ahead and click on menu. It's going to just keep walking me through the entire process. Click on menu. Notice it took my my cursor right to the right spot at reporting tools. Obviously, the menu is quite large in PeopleSoft, and sometimes it's very onerous for people to understand what they're doing. So here, I'm drawing my attention right here to reporting tools. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, continue on, select query, select query manager, and now I'm getting right into the query manager screen, and it takes me into now to say, okay, go ahead and click create a new query. As you can see, it's going to walk me through every step that I need to take. So I'm clicking on new query, and as soon as I do the thing, it's going to take me to the next step. Now there's a little bit of explanation. What is this page about? The records page is used to select the records upon which to base our new query. It gives me some more information. Go ahead and click on next. It says go ahead and enter this record name into this. So go ahead and try this one for this example. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it in there and click on next. Click on search. You can see how it's walking me through the entire process. Now it explains you want to add the record because we're going to take that into our query record. And sometimes there's any join. When we do that, we can explain that if we want to. And eventually we're going to click on add record. And now we're in the query page. And now it's telling me about the query page. And this is going to go on and on and on, all the way to the point of running an entire query, saving it, the whole thing. This is just one process guide that's designed to help people understand how to do queries. But of course, the process guides could be anything. They could do anything. It could show you how to do anything in PeopleSoft. In fact, we have a whole bunch of pre-built content that I'll talk about later that walks through how to do all the standard transactions in PeopleSoft. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this for now. You can see kind of how that works. And at any guide can have a feedback loop at the end of it. This messaging can, as the user does that guided process, they can offer a rating and maybe say a little bit more. This was good, but can you help with an AP query or something? I don't know, whatever, submit feedback, right? So as the person submits the feedback, that now goes into the backend analytics, which we'll be able to see a little bit later when we get into the OGL tool itself. So let me go back to my home page. So we've got this ability to look up any of the guides. You'll notice that we have a sectioning here. So we've got kind of welcome and general announcements. We have self-service guides. We have AP guides, billing, accounts receivable. So we can organize these guides however we want. This is your library. You get to decide how you want to organize these guides. One question that always comes up is, can we secure guides? Can we only have some guides available for some users? And the answer is yes. Security is baked into it. You don't have to do it that way. Some organizations don't do that kind of security because they just say, well, it doesn't matter. If you don't have access to creating a voucher, you can try to run this, but you won't actually get to that page in PeopleSoft. So some people don't even do that. But the organization here of all the guides is something you have freedom to do, and however you want to organize them. So we've shown how I can launch a guide straight from the Help Center. Let's go ahead and run this one. So we've got a smart tip that tells me about search. Pro tip, did you know that you can search for that hard to find menu item? Try it out with suppliers or vouchers. Click here to learn more about search. So what is this? What am I doing with this smart tip? What I'm doing is I'm very casually changing my user's behavior as an administrator of PeopleSoft. Maybe I know my people have to go to all these different places in the menu. I know it takes them 5 or 6 clicks to get that place in the menu. And I would like to slowly transition them into search because search is going to be a much better experience and your users are going to have better satisfaction. So maybe I want to start to change their behavior and influence that behavior a little bit. So here's how I can do that. I can create this little smart tip. I can even make this message pop up. Even let's say if I go and click on the menu, I can even pop up a message and say, hey, did you know there's another way to get to this thing you're trying to get to? Let's try it out. Let's go to search, right? So it's a way to kind of change people's behavior. So I'm going to go ahead and click on search. This one's now going to help me understand search and actually do a little search. So I'm going to go ahead and select next. It's drawing my attention right here to this button. You'll see there's a little highlight and border around this button. Okay. It's saying, here's your menu. The search bar allows you to search for different menu items, which is the default, or to find content within a certain area. Click on the menu dropdown to see different areas of content. So let's go ahead and click on that. As we do, it's drawing my attention. Now you see this red sort of what's called a beacon. It's drawing my attention to this accounts payable spot. It says, go ahead right here and click on accounts payable. And it says you can actually search for keywords in AP, like a voucher ID, a payment ID, or a vendor. Go ahead and type in a word like mid-tin. So I'm going to go ahead and type in mid-tin, and I'm going to click on next. And it explains that, see, you're going to see search results related to mid-tin. Now I could give more detail about that. Again, we're using that beacon to draw my attention over here. I could have said more. I could say, to learn more about this, click here, do this, do that. We're going to keep this really simple and just say, yep, you just searched. And little by little, you're learning that now you can search for content within each of these areas. Go ahead and click on next. And now I'm going to switch this back to menu and switch to next. And it says enter a word like voucher. So now I'm searching through the menu and I'm entering a word like voucher. It says, yep, now your pages related to vouchers are going to appear. So I've just very subtly, and I'm going to click on next, and that's it. It concludes the guide. That's the full thing. It was very simple. It was about 5 or 6 different steps here to kind of walk me through it. Actually, there's about 9, but it feels very simple. It feels very lightweight, sort of just a guide to kind of help you through something and learn it, right? Now, I've subtly changed the person's behavior to say, you know what? I actually could use search here instead of trying to find this thing in the menu. Or maybe within a certain content area, I might actually look for content within a certain module area. So it's very simple. These guides are not the traditional way we look at training guides, which is I'm going to try to explain every single possible angle to this functionality because it might come up as a question. Instead, we're very simple, very small, very short, helping people right in their time of need to sort of understand very small little components and then move on. And this person says, okay, good, I'm done. And again, I have this little feedback loop, and I'm going to say, go ahead and say, no thanks, this time I don't need to give any feedback. So we've got the idea of, these messages that are popping up here. We've got a smart tip that pops up here. Here's another smart tip telling people about home pages. Maybe we want to help people understand. Maybe we want to take action, personalize the homepage. How do I personalize the homepage? How do I add a homepage itself, like add a new homepage? I'd like to know how to do that, right? So we can add these things at different places. And we've got the menu of the Help Center that has all of these different guides baked in. So that's all really great. It's really just kind of sitting there waiting to be used by our users. But there's also another use case. And the use case is that maybe people don't even know that this messaging is there. They don't know about this help widget, Maybe it's a brand new employee to the organization, and we actually want to pop up messaging for that person. So right now I'm going to use a use case where a person is kind of stumbling around and they say, you know what, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to go to e-procurement. I don't know what's there, but I'm going to go ahead and click on this e-procurement. Here, when I come in here, a pop-up message comes up. So I didn't actually launch this message. The pop-up message came up on the screen, welcoming the person to the ePro homepage and offering a little bit of help to understand. First of all, if you want to become a requisitioner, click here, and then we take them out to a policy document to explain, how to become a requisitioner. And if they want to be guided through creating a requisition, they can click here and be guided through creating a requisition. And if you're familiar with this in other avenues, whether it's on your phone or different websites, you're familiar with the concept of, you know what, it's all great. I would love to take a tour of how to do this right now, but I don't have time. I just want to go do something really quick. So I just want to remind me later. So this feature is baked into any guide that you create. You can turn on the remind me later feature, and then you're in control as the user, as the person who's interacting with this tool, to say, you know what, yeah, just remind me, tomorrow or next week. I'll take a tour, but just can I do my thing right now, right? So this is a great way to use that feature. It's baked in. All you, as an administrator of OGL, it's just a checkbox to turn this feature on for these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, sure, I'll take a tour. Click here, and now it's going to walk me through. Okay, click on create requisition. Now I'm going into the requisition screen. It says, yep, well, here's your business unit. Enter the business unit. Click next. Enter requester. So I'm going to look that up and find the requester and click next and hit OK. So you can see how easy it is to use these guides. It's going to really kind of draw your attention, tell you everything you need to do as you go through this process. Now, these messages don't have to show up right here, right next to the message. So in this case, let's say this message is kind of blocking some things. I can do called an offset. I can take this message and move it down here. So it's kind of a guide, or maybe over here on the right. I can put it wherever I want on the screen and sort of say, you know what, I'll just have this over here. It'll still highlight the field, right? But the messaging can be disconnected and offset in a different place. So you have the full ability to do that. All right. Okay. So there we've got a guide that we've launched through the menu. We've got a smart tip that helped us launch a guide to learn search. We saw messaging popped up around expenses, the expenses tile, and we also went into ePro where a message popped up. So that messaging is really great for things like, let's say you've got downtime. Maybe this Friday we're going to take the system down, we're going to do an upgrade, or we're going to do maintenance. We want people to know about it. Well, we could pop up a message starting the week before to let people know that on Friday where the system is going to go down. Maybe we have people in the system right now. We want to push out a message to them saying, hey, system's going to go down tonight. Please save your work by 5 o'clock and get out. So that messaging now can pop up on people's screens. And here's a great thing. I didn't really explain this, but I did mention before that OGL has no code. There's no code in App Designer here. There's nothing to create as a developer. This happens at a layer that's on top of PeopleSoft. So you don't actually do any code in PeopleSoft with App Designer. There's no migrations. You're doing this at a different layer. And I'm going to show that to you here in a little bit. Okay. So last thing I'm going to show you here, actually a couple more things I'm going to show you before we get off of here. The idea of a task list. So here, let's think about an example of a new user who has just come into the system. And that user, we want them to do 4 or 5 things. We want them to set their preferences. We want them to understand search. We want to understand process monitor. Maybe we want them to update their contact information. So we can pop up this message, this what's called a task list, that has individual guides. Remember, we just did this using search one. So that's the one we just did right there. That's this one right here. So we just did it. So it recognizes that we did it. We're 1 of 5 completed. So as a new user, as I complete these other ones, and I can click on any of these and launch into those guided processes, when I complete that guided process, it'll recognize that I completed it, and it will mark this as completed. And when I complete all 5, this task list could actually go away. So it's very easy to now use this concept of a task list to push out things to people, say, we want you to do these things, right? Do these things. This will keep showing up until they complete the 5 transactions, or whatever you want to put on your task list. This also works in a situation where you have repetitive tasks that you have to do all the time. So for example, you have an AP group who is onboarding a supplier, and there's 4 or 5 different things we have to do to onboard a supplier. An HR group has to onboard a new employee, and when there's 5 or 6 things we have to do to onboard an employee. So we want to keep that list of tasks, and we want to put them into these guided processes. And now all of those sort of procedures that we have offline outside of PeopleSoft is now baked into PeopleSoft to say, this is how you set up a new user. This is how you onboard a supplier. This is how you roll a PO from one year to the next. And there's actually multiple things you have to do that. So all those task lists can actually get in there. In those cases, you don't actually track that they've completed because you want to do the things over and over and over. So we're just keeping the task list to group a bunch of different guided processes. So you can do that as well. Okay, any questions on these guided processes and how they can be used here in PeopleSoft? So let me do a quick check and see if there's any questions. I don't think we have any questions yet. So feel free to just jump in and ask a question in the window if you'd like to do that. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do before I go into OGL, the tool itself, and show you what it looks like to actually manage OGL, is I'm going to show you some people still like the idea that, yes, it's great. I know I can launch this guided process and actually walk through doing something in PeopleSoft. I understand that. But can I just see the process? Can I just see like what we would call a job aid? Well, yes, you can. So here under this, you can actually launch a job aid for any of these things. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the job aid for this specific guided process, the search one that we just ran. So here you can see all of the steps that we just ran through for search. Understand search. Here's the thing about the menu. Here we're going into for AP related content. It's talking about this. So each of these things is capturing the screenshot with the messaging, and I can actually just read the entire process. So I don't have to actually run through it. This is the job aid. It's baked in automatically. You don't actually have to create the job aid. Job aid is created on your behalf as you go through and build your guided process. This is automatically captured. Even the screenshots can be automatically captured for you. So this guide is automatically there. It's ready to go. There's no editing you need to do. You just edit the guide itself, the guided process itself, and it will edit the job aid. And if you really want to, you can print this out. It goes to a PDF. I can also email this job aid to an individual, and this creates a little link that takes that person and it allows them to see the process. This is really great because we can keep actually all the links to all of our job aids, all of our guided processes, our OGL guides, and we actually keep that, and we could put that, give that to the help desk. So when somebody calls in the help desk, says, hey, how do I use search again? Well, let me just send you the job aid for that, right? So I can send that job aid to you. I can post these on an intranet site where somebody can look at all the job aids. So all of that is baked in automatically for you and created. And you can actually look at the job aid without actually access to PeopleSoft. So that's a really great thing. So those are my job aids. I do see a question. So let me just jump over there. Oh, just a question about the recording. So Susan, I know we're recording this. How will people access the recording after?
Yes, that is correct. That's okay. They will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording.
Cool. Thank you very much. All right.
Sure thing.
Any questions? Yeah. So any questions here within OGL? So how to run these guides and the interaction, how it kind of works. Okay, because I'm going to move on. We're going to move on to the OGL tool itself, so Org Guide Learning. So I'm going to log out of PeopleSoft, and I'm going to log into OGL. OGL is a SaaS application. You subscribe to it, and I'll explain that a little bit later, how that works. But you subscribe to it, and within this, you have the ability to have your tenancy, which is essentially just an account. And within that, you have access to creating multiple applications. In this case, this is my application for financials. And here's all my content. So each one of these tiles represents one individual OGL guide. Okay, so let me do a search for the search one. And here's that same one that we were just looking at, that we ran, that was associated with that search screen, the search area at the top of the search menu bar. And you can see this says published, and you can see these ones say draft. So that's the first thing to know, is that when I want to create content and I want to publish it, so let me take a step back. When you create this, you create it in a non-production environment. If you want to then make that guide available in your production environment, you simply click on this button and you click publish. And that's all you do. You click publish and it's now available in your production environment. So here you can see I have published. These are available in production. These ones would only be available in non-production. So what happens once you publish it? What if you want to continue to make changes? Well, you can do that. And it shows right here as an unpublished revision. So I've been making changes to this guide. And if I want to republish it, I just simply say click publish again, and it resyncs all my changes from my non-production into production. I can also unpublish it or deactivate this guide. I also have the ability to look at version history. So in this case, I want to look at there have been 31 versions of this guide. If I would have put in, when I publish it, you can put in specific, when I save it, I can actually put in messaging to say, here's what I made changes to this time. So you can actually put messaging around your different instances of this. I can actually preview an old version, or I even restore it if I wanted to. So you have full version history of all your guides. So let's actually take a look at this specific guide, and let's go into what's called the full editor. And this editor is actually going to take me in and show me how I'm actually modifying this guide itself. So I'll click on this little button here. This is the editor. What's going to happen is it's going to launch me into PeopleSoft itself. So I've got this sort of overlay, which is the OGL toolbar, and it's going to sit on top of the PeopleSoft environment. Let me widen this out just a little bit. Okay, so here I can actually look at all the steps. I'm on step 1 of 9 steps. Let me click on the second step here. This was the step where it drew my attention up here to the menu button. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this tip. You can see that once I edit it, I have the ability to make any changes to content. If I want to add more, this is about blah, blah, blah. I can make that change and it automatically is real time in there. I have the ability to change the fonts, the size, justification. I can do things like putting in a table. So if I want to move things around and line them up into like a table, an invisible table, if I want to, I can do it that way. So all of that's fully available to you to change the content. I can even create links out to other things. I can launch a guide from here. So let's say I wanted to launch a guide to allow people to say, yeah, if you want to learn more about X, you want to learn more about, such and such, click here, and then that takes them out of this guide and into another guide. So I can launch a guide from here, no problem. So let's take a look at this. We've got a target. The target is this button right here, this menu button. This is the element that we're attaching this messaging to. So if I want to change that target, you select the target, and I just simply click on new target, and now I can change that to anything else. Let's say I didn't want it on the menu. I want to change this to maybe be associated with this field right here, this little ... So now I've changed that messaging to be over here on this button right here. Okay, so very easy to change the target and move it anywhere on the screen. You can see it's really just a point and click. And as part of our training, we teach you how all this works and what's the right the right selector to pick and all that kind of stuff. You do not have to know HTML for this. We teach you some basic things just to understand how this all works, but this is all done through usually a very functional person who understands the business process, but is not a developer. This does not require a developer. You can see how easy this is to simply change the messaging, change the target selector, that sort of thing. There are additional settings that control the behavior. So for example, I want to highlight this border with a border, or I want to gray everything out behind. That's simply right here. It's a checkbox. Right now it's set to border, but let's say I want to change it to border and overlay. Let's see what happens. You can see now everything grays out. Instead of having everything available, I want to draw people's attention up here and make them click on this. It's the only thing they can click on. So I can actually control people's behavior a little bit on these screens if I want to do that. Right now, I don't want to do that. I'm going to switch it back to just border, and now everything else is available, even though I could change it to border and overlay. You'll notice there's no next button, so we've hidden the next button. We allow people to close here, but if I wanted to take that away, I could take the close button away. I could show the back button. I could even show them, what step they're on, that sort of thing. So all of this is just very easy to click on the checkbox. Maybe I don't like that it's a 600 pixels wide. I want to change that to 400. Okay, no problem. Change the size of it. It's all very, very easy to do. There's that tip offset I talked about. Let's say I don't want this message right here. I want to offset this tip and put it down the lower right. Very easy to click that button and move that messaging around. So that's all kind of the display settings. I also have activation. Oh, and there's the beacon, right? Very easy. Just click on that, and now I got a beacon up there, right? So you can see how easy it is to do this stuff. No development expertise required for this. You'll notice that, remember that I didn't have a next button, right? Why? Because I want somebody to click on this thing and take them to the next screen, right? So what does that mean? It means that I need to select this option right here, advance when the user clicks the element. In other words, I can make this guide progress and advance the next step as long as I just click on this, user clicks the element. Now, I could do other things. Maybe if the user clicks on this or clicks on that, maybe they hit backspace. Maybe I don't want them to do something. And when they do that, I want to advance their next step and pop up another message. So I have the full ability to manage this behavior of these guides. And whatever I want to make it do for these people, I can make it happen, right? Maybe I want to delay the advance by a certain amount of time. I want to show a tip only when they hover. I mean, all those different kinds of stuff. I can even do really advanced conditions that says, if it sees this or that on the screen, then go ahead and show this step. So maybe if the person enters a currency, that we don't want them to use that currency, and if they enter that currency, we want to pop up a message. Well, I can do that with advanced conditions, and then by doing that, I can actually change people's behavior and ensure that they don't enter something actually incorrectly. Lastly, there are some advanced settings, and those help us deal with certain more complex things like parent containers, scrolling through something like the menu and stuff like that. Again, we teach you how to do all this stuff in our training class, which comes with the licensing of this application. Okay, I am not going to save this change, but you can see how easy it is to make these messaging. Let's say I wanted to come back in here and let's say I wanted to, excuse me, maybe I wanted to add another step. Actually, I want to insert a step between 5 and 6. I add a step, change the messaging, and just drag it right up here into between step 5 and 6. It's that easy to make changes to these guides. It really is pretty simple. Okay, any questions on the development or creation of these guides and how easy it is? Okay, I don't see. Okay, I do see another question. Let me just launch the question so I can see the whole question.
A bolt-on question. Is the OG available for bolt-on components too?
Yes, because OGL doesn't know the difference between a PeopleSoft delivered object and a custom object that you have. So yes, it will work with any of your customizations, your bolt-ons, all of that. I do see another question. Is OGL available for on-premise? Yes, absolutely. Even though this OGL is a SaaS application, it will connect with your PeopleSoft wherever your PeopleSoft is, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem, hosted on different infrastructure. It does not matter. This SaaS application's OGL will connect to your PeopleSoft. Okay, hopefully that answered those questions. Okay, so now I'm back in OGL itself. One more thing I want to show you, and that's the dashboards, sort of the analytics piece. So here I have the full ability to look at a whole bunch of information about how these guides are being used. So here I am looking at the activity dashboard, which shows me for the last year. I could narrow this down to, let's say, the last quarter if I want to do that. What guides are being run, the top guides, when they're being run, what days. I can see the average feedback. Lots of high-level KPIs here that if I just want to kind of track. I can launch into any of these individual guides. So for example, I want to launch into one individual guide. I can go into that specific guide. And why is that not running? Okay, I think I need to come over here. Oh, there it goes. Just took a second. So now I can launch into one specific guide. I can see, okay, what's happening in this one? Where are people spending time on this? How much time are they spending? When do they drop? You know, how long until they drop out of this? How far do they get? You know, so you know, a lot of people obviously finish the first step, but they're dropping off. This gives me information about how people are using this guide, and maybe it allows me to make some modifications to make it even more effective for people. Okay, If I want feedback, I can get into feedback. I could say what are people, what information are people giving me about these guides. The feedback, I can look at that feedback, narrow it down to a specific application, maybe specific guide, and see a lot of people are asking for AR content. So maybe we put that into our guided process around search. Okay, that's fine. We can do that. Lastly, I have one more thing, which is our user dashboard. This I like. I call this the help desk dashboard. And the reason is that if you're on the help desk and somebody's calling in to ask a how-to question, I can actually look at that individual and say, you know what has this person actually done? I can click on that individual's name and get into their individual usage of the application. Have they run any guides? When have they run them? What are their top guides that they run? What's the feedback they've given? I can even get down to the details of, which guides they've actually started and run. They've actually run this, but haven't completed this one. So I can get a lot of good information here about this, and it helps me in answering that person's question and helping them even use this even more to get more value out of OGL. So this is kind of another one of the dashboards. All these dashboards are completely built in. There's nothing to configure. They're completely available already with all the data points that it captures out of the application. There's nothing you need to do to set this up. It's just automatically there for you. Okay, I do see one more question, and that is, when an OGL guide is published, is that visible to everyone? Can you restrict guides to different cohorts of users? And yes, I did answer that earlier, and the answer is yes. We can use security. We have a bolt-on to allow you to expose your PeopleSoft security into OGL, and then OGL the guides can then be activated. It's called activation based on specific security or user cohorts, as you mentioned. Now, that's not the only way to do it. In fact, some people would say it's better to not do that, but actually just show guides on certain screens. So let's say a user goes to the AP homepage. Well, that's where I could have all the AP guides. I don't have to have the AP guides on the front screen so that anybody can see them. Through maybe they're on employee self-service. Well, I don't need to show an AP guide when they're on employee self-service. Maybe I only show that guide when they go to an AP homepage or an AP work center, that sort of thing. So you can control it that way too. But if you don't want to do that, you just want to make everything available in all areas of PeopleSoft, you could then restrict it with security. So you have all those options as part of deployment. All right, any other questions on OGL? I got 10 minutes left. I'm going to just wrap up with sort of how the application is licensed and all of that. So any questions on the use of the guides in PeopleSoft or how they're developed or anything like that? Anything? By the way, this is OGL as a tool, but you'll notice that OGL sits on top of OGL. In other words, I can get guided help using OGL, and I'm using OGL to do that. So I actually can look at my release notes from the latest updates, the 24B release notes, 24A release notes. I can get other trainings in here. I can look through tutorials, all sorts of stuff here. OGL functions on OGL. Oh, one more thing I'll just mention is, as part of this, there is a full user management function that allows me to control who can see what in within the OGL tool itself. So, for example, maybe I want some users to be able to write content, but not actually do the full editing of the guide. So I can do that with security. I can even allow segregation of duties, where some people can develop a guide in non-production, but cannot publish to production. I can create a segregation of duties and create a role to allow somebody to publish. And maybe the person to publish can't actually develop. So you have the full ability to do all of that with your security here in user management. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint and let me know if there's any other questions. Okay, so we saw that this is real time in a real life production environment. You can see how somebody getting that help will actually have a fast time to productivity. And we saw the analytics that's baked into the dashboards and other pieces within the OGL tool itself. The rest of these screens, which we'll make available to you, just sort of overview kind of some of the things that I was showing previously, some of the analytics and some of the guides. Here we talk about the job aids, which you can do and replicate some of the things that you could do previously with other tools. So all of that's available to you through the job aids. And then we did the demo. All right, some quick question and answers. So for people who I do get some frequently asked questions. So, and one of the questions you already asked, which is, does this work if for on-premises PeopleSoft? And the answer is yes, it works for on-premises PeopleSoft. Does it work for Classic in Classic mode? Yes, it actually works. If you have PeopleSoft still in Classic mode, it works. Does it support multi-language? Very important to our users in Asia potentially, who need to handle multiple languages. Yes, and you can just flip the tile, or in OGL, you can flip it over to a different language and actually see it in the different languages. In fact, there's machine translation of all of your guides. So if you want to take your guides, write them in one language, and then use the translation feature, it'll actually translate those guides automatically into another language. Now, of course, you're going to ask, well, how do we know that's a good translation? Well, you don't. You're going to go in and you're going to read it, and you might need to make some modifications. But it's nice to know that there is machine translation of that, and it really shortens the time frame to actually translate your guides into other languages. What people tools? Anything above 8.5.5. So hopefully all of you are past 8.5.5. Does it work on version 9.1? Yes. What about other non-Oracle applications? And the answer is yes, for HTML-based applications. This is an HTML-based tool, and so for any other applications beyond PeopleSoft, and this could be even a non-Oracle application, it will work for those applications as long as they're HTML-based applications. And before we get to pricing, I see a couple more questions, so I'm going to go just look over there real quick. So, all right, can we use this for our bolt-on development? I don't totally understand the question. You can use it to give guidance for bolt-ons in PeopleSoft. So I explained that earlier, that OGL does not know the difference between a custom bolt-on and a delivered object. So your guides that you build can be built on delivered processes, delivered pages, or custom pages, bolt-on pages. No difference there. It works totally fine. Next question. With PeopleSoft, a lot of features are standard. Do you have a list of all the guides available, any free guides that customers can try now? So we do have our guides available as job aids that you can check out right now. So if you can send me an email, I can send you the actual catalog of our job aids that are available as pre-built content, which we call our starter kit. So let me get to that here, and I'll explain that here in a second about how you actually can take the next steps into looking at this. So SpearMC is the exclusive partner to bring value-added services to the resale process. Okay, what does that mean? It means that when you license OGL, what we do for you is all of this, in addition to having the ability to use the software, which is essentially the license, we actually do help you with the installation. We do a proof of concept build of guides. So we build a couple of guides for you and help you understand how it's going to work without a two-way street where we ask you, how do you want it to work, and how do we build some guides that allow you to play with it and understand it. We look at your own internal design standards. If you have things like branding and that sort of thing, and we help you integrate those design standards into your use of your use of OGL. We do a full-day training workshop where we take all your users who want to learn how to do this, and we teach them how to build their own content. And so all those things that I was showing you in a very, very short time frame, we do that over the course of the entire day and teach you how to do all these guides in a much more complex way. And then with a multi-year licensing, we also do our annual assessment with you, where we actually walk through how you're using it. Let's look at your analytics. Let's look at your feedback from individuals, and how can we make it even better and bring more value to your organization. So we help you with that with our multi-year licensing. In addition to the licensing, then we have our pre-built content, which I talked about earlier. We call that our starter kit. We have over 200 guides per pillar. So at HCM, Financial, and Campus, each one of those have over 200 guides. We focus on things like employee self-service, manager self-service, core business processes, things that you would expect to have within a certain module. We even do things that you would normally not have training on, things like enterprise components, people tools, and other things that you normally wouldn't have training on. So we have these things that will actually walk even individuals. Maybe you're not going to put out things around enterprise components like building a homepage to all your end users, but maybe you want that for your core PeopleSoft administrators. You want to show them how to do things, and you can bring those starter kit guides in, and you can actually see how to do things in PeopleSoft. These guides work out of the box because they work at an HTML layer. They don't work based on any specific data points. They work at the HTML layer. So because of that, when we bring our starter kit into your environment, it works immediately. It works in your environment immediately. But we fully expect you to review them, to adapt them to exactly what you want for your language. We expect you to be able to use them as templates. Maybe you don't like the guide exactly as it is, but you like something that it does, and you want to copy that sort of technique into another guide that you want to build from scratch. You can do that with our starter kit. The starter kit, like I said, focuses on all these different areas, and it's a fast, accelerated way to get going with OGL that doesn't require a very long implementation. When you license OGL and you get our starter kit, you can be up and running very, very fast. It just really depends on how much time you want to take to determine which are your guides you're going to go live with. That sometimes can take a little bit of time because this is a brand new thing. The idea of OGL, the idea of a digital adoption in PeopleSoft is a new thing for your users, and you're going to need to figure out how you want to roll that out to people. So it might take a little bit of time. And like I said, we do have a catalog of all of our guides, and if you email me separately, I will send you a list of all the guides, and you'll be able to actually see the job aids of all those guides. Okay, I think that's it. I'm almost at time. I think I have time for another question or two, but I will leave this up if you want to get, and there's the question, my email address, so it's right here. So Cameron@SpearMC.com. You can also, if you want to follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn, I should say, I'm happy to do that as well. We can connect on LinkedIn, but certainly feel free to email me, or I should really have this as a +1 because it's the United States phone number. But you can even text me if you'd like to. All right, one question here. I'll also explain the licensing scheme. Okay, the licensing scheme, meaning, so the licensing is based on your total employee count. So it's not your user count. So let's say, well, I've got 10,000 employees, but we only have 500 users of PeopleSoft. So we still license it on the 10,000 employees, but we can have a conversation about that, and the discount can be great if you have a very small amount of users. But generally speaking, this is a tool that can be used for all of your employees, especially in the HCM space. And so it's going to be licensed based on your total employee count, but the discounts are pretty big. So, and if you want to go through that process, you can connect with me and we can run that quote for you. I include the Oracle reps in that process, and we work together on getting you a quote that includes our value-added services, as I mentioned before. All right, any other questions here? Okay, well, I think that's the hour, and I want to be cognizant of your time. So if any of you are like me in North America, it's time for the day to be over. And for those of you in Asia, it's time for you to get on with the rest of your work today. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really am passionate about this. I do believe that many PeopleSoft customers are going to have this tool in your PeopleSoft environment because it is just so powerful and so helpful to you, to your users. It really will eliminate your help desk calls and really change the way you're thinking about supporting your users going forward. Really excited about it. I can do this demo for you if you'd like your organization to see this demo. Please connect with me and I will do the demo for you privately. We can go through individual questions that you may have. So this is what I do. I do all the demos for this, and I'm happy to do one for you if you'd like. With that, I will end the webinar there. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it. Appreciate explaining all this to you. Feel free to reach out if you have any follow-up questions. Thank you, and have a good night or good day.